and the bell. Bloomberg's comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close starts right now.
All right, about 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day, Katie Greifeld and Scarlet Fu counting it down to the closing bell. And here to help take us beyond the bell with the global simulcast, we're now joined by Carol Massar and Matt Miller. We bring together all of our audiences, Bloomberg Television, Radio, YouTube, originals, as we go through what has been a pretty quiet start to a very important week, Carol.
Yeah, it's like we have a Fed meeting or something. Yeah, it does feel that way. And even though we're going to have a ton of earnings that will definitely shape, you would assume, the trade, especially because of some of the big ones, right? We've got Meta, Microsoft. We talked about them earlier. Energy names, a lot of chip names as well. Like, it will definitely play out this week, but we'll see. I feel like until we get through that Fed meeting on Wednesday, it's going to be a little tough going for investors.
Yeah, although we do have the momentum on our side, right? And I was talking with Carol earlier about Ed Hyman's note wrapping up the week, saying that we're in a max momentum market right now. And he compares the market we're in now to the run-ups that we saw in 1995, in 1999, and in 2000. He says he thinks the bears are underinvested right now, but the bulls are going to be overinvested when it comes to 2024. So it'll be interesting to see how this market shakes out.
The bears were also wrong because Mike Wilson of Morgan Stanley basically conceded that 2023 has been a story of higher valuations, higher than we expected, and falling inflation and cost cutting. And not to say he's given up on everything, but he did raise his price target for the S&P 500, now at 4,200.
All right, you can hear the bells ring right now. You see the people clapping. You take a look at the S&P 500, only about 0.4% higher. Saying to Scarlett, it's probably no surprise that on this day, volume a little bit lower. You take a look at the NASDAQ composite finishing about 0.2% higher. But the big news is the Dow Jones. The Dow managing to finish 11 straight days in the green. According to the terminal, Carol, that is the longest streak since February 2017.
All right, and I'm going to go to Matt's this is just for you, Matt. The NASDAQ Golden Dragon China Index up 4.25% today, and there's a couple of names in the NASDAQ 100 that are
tech
top.
Stocks are doing so great. Are they all tech stocks?
What?
Are they all? Are the Golden Dragons all tech stocks? Or are they just any Chinese companies listed in the U.S.?
No, it's a bunch. Yeah, it's a bunch of the ADRs that trade here in the United States.
Oh, and I just didn't know if they were specifically tech dragons or if...
No, I think they're tech names.
Any kind of... They're mostly tech, right?
Are they mostly?
I don't know.
No, I think it's like a mixture. All right. Well, we'll talk about this later.
So they've done really well. I'm taking a look at the...
They've outperformed certainly today.
I'm taking a look at the index eco sectors here on the S&P 500, and it hasn't been tech leading the way, as Katie was saying. But we have had energy as a big leader with crude just jumping higher, right? NYMEX trading up to 78.92. That really helps the energy companies. Then you've got real estate, financials, and consumer discretionary. Only utilities and healthcare are losers.
Yeah, I'm just going to say there's like an auto parts company.
Yeah, you're right.
So no, that's okay.
Needed to check that.
They're your dragons.
All right, moving on. Let's get to some of the individual gainers. Man, Matt, you're tough today. Did you get a good night's sleep this last night or what?
Yes, I slept 8 hours and 40 minutes last night.
Man.
Maybe you need to sleep less.
Yeah, I agree with you. Maybe he needs to sleep less. Okay, let's get to some of the individual gainers. Barbenheimer, that certainly played out. We saw the movie stocks, those that the movies.
That's got to be short covering after the April AMC.
I have to say with AMC Entertainment, there's a couple things going on. The stock was up 33%. It's not just about the movies this past weekend. I'm going to just do it really quickly. You want more of the details, just go to Bloomberg.com or check it out on the Bloomberg. But there was a surprise court ruling on Friday that basically put an end to a stock conversion plan that the cinema chain had now revised. So there's a Delaware Chancery Court did a ruling. It kind of stunned the world, stunned investors, some analysts who had expected her to sign off on this class action settlement, which would have had costs. Why are you laughing?
Shocked the world. We were all aghast. Jaws hanging down.
Come on, we were all talking about it this weekend. Anyway, AMC definitely an outperformer. And then there's Barbenheimer that, it was a good weekend box office. 30% though of that stock is shorted. The float is shorted. Yeah, no, AMC. IMAX also, it rallied. It was up about 3%. 0.7%. Then there's Becton Dickinson. It was number one in the S&P 500. We saw a record intraday. I think we might have had a record close as well. Company said its updated Alaris infusion system received 510 clearance from the FDA. Basically, it's a process to getting it out there. So nonetheless, that one was an outperformer, up almost 6%. And
out of Franklin Lakes, New Jersey.
Love my New Jersey names. Yeah. And then Tesla, 3.5% higher, top in the NASDAQ 100. And we just talked about Stefan Nicola, his story, and how Tesla is selling more EVs than all the German automakers combined.
Ladies, that's a reference to Stefan Nicola, who is the Bloomberg News reporter who wrote the Tesla story.
Right. Not to
I sat next to him in Berlin. Not to be confused with Nikola Tesla.
Totally different people.
Help me, someone.
All right,
please.
let's get to some decliners right now. We're looking at Gilead Sciences, one of the big losers in the S&P 500 after a setback to its oncology business. It halted a closely watched trial involving an experimental cancer drug that Gilead acquired 3 years ago for about a $5 billion price tag. Spotify down almost 5% after falling as much as 7% earlier after raising prices for premium subscribers around the world. It'll be reporting quarterly results tomorrow, but some analysts are saying that perhaps buy on rumors, sell on news. So the news came through that it did raise prices and the stock fell. SiriusXM Radio, Katie, you included this on Friday because it was such a big loser. Well, it's extended those losses today. Of course, last week on Thursday, it had surged 42%. That was a short squeeze rally, and 4 analysts have downgraded the stock, the satellite radio company, since then, saying that the fundamentals don't quite match up.
Yeah, that stock is definitely going through some price discovery, if you will. Going to be interesting to watch that. But let's talk about the bond market because it's so interesting. 2-year Treasury yields, you're seeing them rise today, a sell-off ahead of the Fed meeting beginning tomorrow. We get the decision on Wednesday. Interesting, again, to see this because at this point, I feel like everyone has gotten their Fed bets in, but still, 2-year Treasury yields up by 7 basis points. That's the most dramatic move. You go across the curve, still a sell-off, but lessening a little bit here. But you add that together, the 2-year rising more than the 10-year Treasury yield. We've spent so much time talking about that 2s, 10s curve. Well, it's further inverted right now.
All right, I want to talk about, dishwashers, washing machines, Whirlpool reporting. This was a pandemic darling. Crossing the Bloomberg terminal, second quarter net sales, a little bit light, $4.79 billion. The estimate was for $4.81 billion. The company talking about second quarter ongoing EPS, $4.21 a share, and that compares with an estimate of $3.78. Company also talking about fiscal year revenue of about $19.4 billion. Matt, that's coming in a little bit better than what the street was anticipating, and talking about fiscal year ongoing EPS 16 to 18. That too looks like some outperformance in that stock, as you can see for those watching on TV and on our streaming service and on YouTube. It's up about 3.5% in the aftermarket. Stock's only up about 6.5% so far this year.
All right, so Whirlpool there coming out with earnings. And we're getting a number of other, obviously we're getting a ton of earnings. Cleveland-Cliffs, for example, coming out with second quarter EPS from continuing operations at 67 cents versus the estimate of 69 cents. We also see second quarter revenue at $5.98 billion. That's better than the estimate of $5.66 billion. So Cleveland-Cliffs, it looks like doing better than expected, but we're going to start getting a ton of earnings right now.
Is it me, or does it feel like there's less pre-announcing going on this quarter? Like usually around now, you get a lot of companies giving indication that they may not meet their estimates, or they're changing their forecast, the range of their forecast. I don't really see that this time around.
There was Carvana, remember, moving up their earnings.
Yeah.
And that's
count?
an idiosyncratic case, though.
Well, and you had Goldman trying to beat down analyst estimates, right?
And that was for weeks before it announced earnings. But since earnings season began, you usually see a lot of companies trying to get in some of this messaging.
Hey, I'm just reading from the Whirlpool press release. The company's CEO, Mark Bitzer, talking about the company, but he also says that we are well positioned to benefit from a housing-driven demand recovery, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Any AI mentions? Any mentions of all?
We'll have to control F on the press release. I would imagine it's in there somewhere,
Sure
maybe on the call. But
I'm doing it already. I don't see it.
Well, we'll see. But Whirlpool shares, actually, they had been about 3.5% higher in the after-hours trade after those numbers came out. Actually just flipped to negative, currently down by about 1.2%. Interesting, again, to parse through these results. It's interesting. They're backing their full year 2023 adjusted EPS view, $16 to $18. The consensus was just a little bit lighter than that. So a lot to work through here, and marrying that up with what we're seeing on demand.
I wonder if you're going to see other companies that are tied to the housing market also come out with similar statements as well. And I'm thinking of, faucet makers and other companies that just provide supplies to the home builders, similar to what Whirlpool is saying, because the housing market has been a bright spot for the economy and may create some complications. There's a Bloomberg News story about this for the Federal Reserve and in its effort to fight inflation. Yeah,
we talked about it a little bit earlier. And keep an eye out for NXP Semiconductor. They're supposed to report, guys, after the close as well today. All right, that's a wrap. Our cross-platform coverage on this Monday. Phew, Monday almost over. Radio, TV, YouTube, and Bloomberg Originals. We'll see you again tomorrow.